Hello, everybody. I think we're now live. I'm hoping that we are live, and if we are, welcome to you all. Thank you so much indeed for joining us for this very important conversation. My name is Peter Ndoro, and it's an honor for me to be your webinar moderator for this all-important conversation. And I know that many of you are in various locations, well above and beyond here in South Africa. And to you, we welcome you to this conversation. And thank you so much for registering and participating in this conversation that we're going to be having. And so we all know, I think many of us, that September is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, and CHOC has been augmenting this global initiative, raising awareness for childhood cancer, early warning signs, and why early detection is so important. We know that great strides have been made in childhood oncology, but we know even more that the battle is probably 90% won with early detection. And that's why conversations such as this are very important. Now, CHOC is a non-profit organization that advocates for the health and well-being of children, of teenagers diagnosed with cancer, as well as blood disorders, but also supporting their families, because the journey, yes, is about the patient, but families and those that support the patients also go on that journey, and they need support as well. To this end, CHOC offers psychosocial, emotional, practical support, augmenting the various medical fraternities that are working in this area. It's CHOC's mission, and I think I've just mentioned it now, to support children and teens with cancer and other life-threatening blood disorders, as well as their families, improving early detection. And we'll talk a lot about that. And also facilitating effective treatment. So we have a number of voices, as I said, today, and we're so privileged to have some as far afield as Geneva and Switzerland. And we want to thank you so much, all of you, for giving us your time to participate in this conversation that we're having about early detection. Now, I've worked as a journalist for many years, and one of the things that I know is that it is extraordinarily difficult to do the work that CHOC does without support, without help. And it's great to see that there are some companies and some corporations that are fantastic citizens taking up causes that sometimes are not the sexiest news-wise. And so I want to say thank you so much to Clover Waters, for supporting CHOC over the years, and to tell us a little bit about why they got involved. Joining me is Marcelo Palmero, who's responsible for all corporate and brand development within Clover, and he's the CEO of Clover Waters. Marcelo's heart and dedication to children with cancer is pretty evident with Clover's support of more than a decade, and that is just phenomenal. And together they've built 6 CHOC houses of hope, and have done numerous maintenance projects and donated many Clover NutriKids products to CHOC. So thank you so much indeed, Marcelo, for joining us. More importantly, thank you so much for the support that you've been giving CHOC over the years.
Thanks very much. Thanks for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here, and everything that I can do myself to help CHOC, I'm going to do. And not only me, also Clover. We are behind CHOC for so many years, as you said, and we hope to going to continue to do that for many years to come. Yeah.
So Marcelo, why was it important to get involved and support CHOC in the way that you've done?
So just to make a big summary, I think everybody knows Clover, at least the South Africans. And although my accent is a bit funny because I'm Brazilian, I'm also South African heart here. So in the case of Clover, you know, it's a company that is a truly South African company. We've been in the country for more than 120 years. I was not there in the beginning, I just want to tell you that. So, and we are a brand that everybody knows in the country. And we all being this company that everybody trusts, everybody knows about the quality of our products. And besides trying to do everything that you do with love and, you know, try to do things better in the business, with our supplier customers. We also like to give back to the consumer, to community in some social initiatives. For us, it's essential. We are really South Africa, so we think that is part of our mission to help to develop, uplift the communities in South Africa. So we have many social initiatives running in the country with Clover, and but I would say that the one that are close to our heart and that you are very passionate about is the one of CHOC. We believe that CHOC, with their work, they can help a lot to the communities with this very serious matter about cancer of children. My father passed away a long time ago as a young guy with cancer, so I know how cancer is difficult for the families. I also love children. I can understand sometimes why children have cancer. You know? I also, with the company, try to push to help CHOC because of this. CHOC has the same values that you have. They try to help the people suffering with this disease, try to increase the awareness of this disease. As you said just now, very important that people understand that disease can happen to everybody. They have to be on the look for the disease. The earlier that you can identify it, help for the survival rate. So we think that this partnership is fantastic. We help CHOC and we help by doing that, we reach one of our missions to help the community here in South Africa. So for us, it's an essential partnership. And while CHOC still want Clover, Clover is going to still want CHOC.
Yeah, and it's really admirable that you've chosen something like this, because there's always a temptation for corporations to run to support those very visible issues, sometimes, just sport and things like that. But sometimes the ones that are not so visible might be the most important. And this one's certainly helping to change lives. So that must be quite rewarding for you.
Yes, for me and for the whole company, Clover, just to give a number to you, when we joined CHOC 16 years ago, we joined because we had some meetings with, trying to find a way that you can help some specific issue in South Africa. We look at different opportunities. As you said before, everybody does sport or something big like that. We are more interested in how can you help really the communities. And when we met some people at CHOC and they told about what they passed themselves with their own children, some of them survived, some of them not survived. We got very impressed with that one. And at that time, the percentage of kids that were identified at stage 1 was very low, most of them later on. So we decided to engage to help on this process, to help in these two areas, I would say, the awareness and how when the kids have problems, how can you help the kids and the families to pass through this very difficult moment? As I said, a person passed through it. It was very difficult for my family. So how can you help them on this process? So it's very rewarding. Just to also give some input for you, not only we try to help with the house, as I said before, we have 6 houses, as you mentioned very well. We have help in the awareness, but also all the employees of the company involved. So our manufacturing guys, we have sites of manufacture across the country. They go to the CHOC house, they help to maintain the houses. We are very proud of that. We send our products to the house because we believe that our products are very nutritious. I mean, we know that. So we can help the kids with the nutrition by delivering the products there. And it's everybody involved. So our sales guys, they have a very proud of sending the products, the distribution guys to deliver the product to the house. So, and we do a lot of fundraising initiatives inside the company to raise money and awareness about the disease also, because, we have 10,000 employees here. They also have the risk of having the disease at their family. So if you can educate our employees also, they can educate their parents, they can educate their friends, they can educate their relatives. So that spread the word about, cancer among children. How can you do, how can you look for it, and how can you support the people that you need, yeah. I say many times, again, I'm very personal about that one. I wish that I had the guys from CHOC at the time that my family passed a lot of difficulties. We come from a poor background in Brazil, so I wish they had someone that could help at that time, because we don't really know what's happening, and then it's very difficult, physically, emotionally, everything.
Well, we want to thank you for the work that you're doing. And I just wonder what message you'd like to give other corporates who might want to get involved with CHOC. What's your message to them?
So my message is very simple. Just do it. I mean, we really, if I can give a personal statement about that one, my involvement in CHOC is a lot of work. There's a lot of kids out there that people don't even know that they have cancer, they die, they don't even know it, or identify the cancer too late. the poor CHOC guys, they have to support the family, they have to maintain the house, they have to talk to the doctors, they have to send to the pediatrician to explain to the pediatrician how to do this early sign of detection of the childhood cancer. So it's a lot of work. They need help. And not only because they need it, and then I think I call upon government, other corporate companies, individuals to also help on that one. I think everybody has opportunity to help here, but the bottom line is that they need the help. And second, I'm telling you, when you do that, you feel so fulfilled, you know what I mean? Like, you know how many times you go and see the kids and how happy when you do an event or when you deliver a house, how happy everybody is about the support that you give, of the food, of the maintenance. I get a lot of pictures because our employees, they go, they're very, very proud of doing that. They take pictures. When you do the bandana days here, everybody's happy using the bandana. So it's very nice how everybody's fulfilled, you know? And sometimes it's a small thing and you make a lot of people happy and also make yourself happy. That's for me is very important. You know, you help and somehow you help yourself, you know? Yeah. So that should be my message to everybody. Just do it, please.
Thank you so much to you, all your employees, your organization, for the great work that you're doing, supporting and saving lives in the way that you do. So thank you so much. Muito obrigado. Adeus.
De nada. Thanks very much.
Great, fantastic. Thanks so much. All right, so that was Marcelo Palmero, who's the CEO of Clover Waters there, talking about the contribution that they're very proud to have made in terms of supporting the work of CHOC over time. All right, so early detection, that's the theme of this conversation. And we know that over time, pediatric oncology has made really great strides in terms of fighting childhood cancer. But what we know for sure as well is early detection is probably one of those golden keys. And to talk to us a little bit about this battle, because we know that children, over one in particular, are particularly vulnerable in facing this threat of childhood cancer. But to talk to us a little bit about that, we're now joined by Professor Geeta Naidu, who's a professor, head of pediatric oncology at the Krishnani Baragwanath Academic Hospital, as well as the academic head of pediatric oncology at the University of Witwatersrand. She also chairs the South African Children's Cancer Study Group, to mention just a few of her achievements and involvements in pediatric oncology nationally and internationally. Prof. Geeta, thanks so much indeed for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Hi, Peter. Thank you very much. I'm really excited to be on this panel. And good afternoon from where I am in Johannesburg to all those attending this important webinar.
Now, I've been doing quite a bit of reading, and you know, the one theme that keeps coming up is early detection, checking the symptoms as early as you can rather than at a later stage. Tell us about, in the work that you do, this golden key, just how important it is.
Yes, I think one of the most important aspects of childhood cancer is early detection. And when we say early detection, we mean that if a child can be diagnosed early and sent to us, this will have a positive impact on the overall survival, the event-free survival, and the disease-free progression of many childhood cancers. The problem is that if we compare our survival with that of high-income countries, and us being well, we fall within the low and middle income countries. Just with standard chemotherapy, survival in high income countries is anywhere between 85 and 90%. And for many countries within the low middle income range, it's as low as 20% in some of these countries. Fortunately, in South Africa, it's not as low. And mainly it has to do with delayed diagnosis. Of course, there are other factors that contribute. Besides delayed diagnosis, it may be an absence of diagnostic and therapeutic modalities. So I think for us, we really, for me and for our community, the pediatric oncology community in South Africa, we cannot emphasize enough how important the early detection of cancer is for us to improve the overall survival, not only in our country, but the rest of the continent and other low and middle income countries.
I suppose what might be of value to people watching this webinar and perhaps don't know too much, what are some of the symptoms and signs that we ought to be looking out for when it comes to perhaps pointing us that maybe there is an issue with the cancer with the child?
Yeah, okay, when we look at cancers and if we look at pediatric cancers, the signs and symptoms can be quite varied. They can be quite non-specific and can mimic other diseases. So what we have done is we have drawn up the early warning signs, and this has been adopted by the National Department of Health in South Africa and also by the Pediatric Oncology for the Developing Communities by the international organization which we refer to as PSYOP. So the early warning signs is our signs are the St. Silouan signs, and for those who may not know, one of our colleagues who was instrumental in drawing up these signs, he's a devout Greek Orthodox, and he the Saint Silouan was a saint who prayed on Mount Athos. So the S stands for seek medical help early. The I is for any change in eye signs, a white spot in the eye, a new squint, a new blindness, or a bulging eyeball. The L stands for lump. This lump can be anywhere in the body, in the abdomen, in the pelvis, in the head, in the neck, in the arms. U is for unexplained fever, especially persisting over 2 weeks, not responding to antibiotics, unexplained loss of weight, pallor, fatigue, easy bruising. The A refers to aching bones, back, and also we include in that fractures. And the N stands for neurological signs. So any change or deterioration in your neurological signs, any loss or regression of previously acquired milestones in the younger child, a persistent headache, an enlarging head, especially in the younger child, a headache with or without vomiting. So that's the St. Silouan warning signs. So it's something very important to us, and we are very grateful to CHOC for helping us to disseminate these warning signs. And together with CHOC and us, we think we can still spread these signs further. When we looked at an audit from my unit about looking at how did our patients present, and we found that with our solid tumors, almost 70% of our patients were presenting with advanced disease. And by that, I mean stage 3 and stage 4 disease. And the problem with presenting with advanced disease is that it has a negative impact on your outcome. And in it, because you have to have so much more chemotherapy, so much more radiation, so much more wide field of surgery, and often these children who present with advanced disease also presenting with malnutrition. So it's the effect of the chemotherapy, the relationship between malnutrition, the disease, the chemotherapy. So all of this has a negative impact on the outcome and the overall survival of these children with cancer. And unlike adult cancers, many of the pediatric cancers actually are curable diseases.
Yeah, you know, when I hear you speaking, I'm always reminded about moms know their children, and sometimes they need to trust those instincts because they know their kids, they can notice these differences. So they must look out for them, I guess, and also to listen to the children, because sometimes they're not just whining, they are giving you signals about a discomfort that perhaps needs to be looked at.
Yes, we have done a study in our unit, and I think the assumption is that because we're living in Africa, a lot of our diseases and late presentation may actually be because our mothers are poorly educated. So we looked at an unpublished study on looking at our retinoblastomas, that is children presenting with eye cancers. And what we found is that from the time a mother first notices that there's something wrong in the child's eye until she seeks medical help is anything up to 4 weeks. And the most frightening thing about this is that once she has taken her child to the first point of care, and until that child came to us in my hospital, was 10 months.
Wow. Wow.
And after the warning signs, we've looked at this again, and we're very happy to report, and we're actually in the process of writing this up, that number has now decreased to between 5 and 6 months. So at least for that, we know that the warning signs is really making a difference. So we feel we have to go ahead with the warning signs. And also the number of children, after we introduced the warning signs, the number of children with cancer has increased. But unfortunately, that hasn't translated into earlier diagnosis. And therefore, we still feel that there's a lot of place to still go to the communities, the primary healthcare workers, and take these warning signs to the community.
All right, and perhaps finally, a question for you is, what's your biggest dream when it comes to early detection? I'm sure you want to reduce that months between the time of first notice to actually coming to you, but what's your biggest dream?
My biggest dream would be all our patients come in, especially with solid tumors, come in as stage 1 disease.
Yeah. All right,
well,
Professor.
I'll be happy with stage 2.
But first prize, stage 1, and it is just noticing things and going in early. And I know that we often think we don't want to be a bother, but it's better to be safe than sorry, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
Professor,
it's not just about noticing, it's about access to healthcare as well.
Yeah, yeah. And that's another whole conversation that we can have, isn't it?
Yes.
But Professor Geeta, thank you so much indeed for joining us and sharing your thoughts on this very, very important aspect of combating childhood cancer, and that's early detection. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
All right, that's Professor Geeta Naidu, head of the pediatric oncology at Chris Hani Baragwanath Academic Hospital, talking to us about that gap. And sadly, in developing nations, that gap between first notice and getting treatment is probably too long. We need to find ways to make sure that we shorten that gap and get that help to our children. Okay, now all of this happens within context. So you heard earlier on Professor Geeta talking about communities, and in South Africa we have a number of communities, various levels of existence, rural, peri-urban, urban, and traditional is also one of the aspects that we deal with on the continent. And to help us explore a little bit more about the traditional setup is Chief Chauke, who is one of the first traditional practitioners trained by CHOC in the early warning signs of childhood cancer. And Chief Chauke is an advocate for childhood cancer and an influencer in this community to make people aware of childhood cancer and how to demystify the myths and beliefs that sometimes go with some of these stigmas, particularly in our traditional setups. Chief Chauke, thank you so much indeed for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Oh, thank you, Peter. I'm so pleased to be part of this program.
And it's so good to see, you know, somebody like you, a leader in community, you know, taking up the responsibility to try and educate and change things. I just wonder, have you seen a positive impact in the community since you've been trained in early warning signs?
Yes, Peter. I think first of all, I have to thank CHOC for actually now, introducing this training to our sector, which is traditional health practitioners, because as you know, 80% of the people, they come to traditional health practitioners first before they could seek any medical, Western medical, help. So it did really make an impact. Their training really did make an impact to us because of now. Remember, before that, the traditional practitioners used to diagnose perhaps cancer differently. Some they'll think it maybe, let's say, it's something which is not, meant for, Africans and so on. We had that belief of saying that cancer can only happen on the, other race beside our race, and also with gender as well. So, but the training really did make an impact because of now our traditional practitioners, they are able now to can see or detect, early warning signs, and they can sort of like refer them quickly to the hospitals and the clinics, so as they must get, a quicker, attention as such.
As you were talking, I heard you say that, part of the challenges are beliefs, and some people believe that this isn't a disease for Black people, Africans, and it belongs to other races. There must be a number of myths and beliefs out there that you're constantly battling with. What else do you see that perhaps we need to help our people in terms of reorienting, re-educating, so that we see these signs and get the help that we need?
Yeah, first of all, Peter, as you know, cancer it's a very rare thing, but when it happens, actually, it usually brings, an endless streams of question from parents as such, because now some parents, they'll ask themselves, how did it happen? And then, well, others will say, what will be the life for our children, in future, and such thing like that. And then, I think the most common one is that now, the parents, they'll never allow, the one that which I've experienced, parents will never allow their kids actually now to play with other kids, because of now those kids, they are sort of like scorning at that child and say that now, perhaps let's say this is witchcraft, this is what, and so on. And then you'll find that sometimes maybe let's say other parents from the other side, they are saying they are actually stopping their kids to play with their children. And then because of maybe they feel that now maybe cancer is very contagiously, whereas it's not, you see. So those are some of the common things that perhaps, let's say, we have experienced.
So how do we change these attitudes and these beliefs in our communities?
Yeah, I think first of all, Peter, is that now we need to educate our community. We need to go there and tell them and teach them about, early warning signs as such, and so as they should be able to can understand them. And then as soon as people, they know about the cancer, and then they know that now cancer is not very contagious, and then they will start actually now to change their attitude, and then they can start to practice. And then we must as well also, encourage our community to say to them that now, in fact, they must support each other, you see, because of now, if we don't support each other, and then we won't be able actually now to kill this myth and so on.
All right, and perhaps finally, why do you think it's important for traditional leaders to be trained in early warning signs of childhood cancer?
Yeah, no, that's one. It's a very good question, in fact, because you see, there are two different kinds of, like, let's say, as some of one of the panelists have already mentioned. We've got rural areas, we've got, urban areas as such, but in rural areas, we do have our chiefs and so on. And then chiefs are actually now there being actually seen as people and who are actually the custodians of the culture, tradition, values, and norms. So those chiefs, they should be able to they've got more power to actually can influence, the community as such. So it is very vital that now they should get this training, because of now it will be a first hand to them. Bear that in mind, at some certain stage whereby now when the chiefs are not involved, people can sort of like, have this belief of saying that now the other one has been cast or other one has been bewitched and so on. So if chiefs understand all these kind of things, or rather maybe they've got this training of early warning signs, they are able to can sort of like also advise. Maybe they see something in a community or in their, like their kingdom. This one can sort of like take the person and say, or maybe advise the parents to take the child to the clinic, whereby the child could have what you call a medical, attention or a medical care. As you know, Peter, in our language, in our say, we've got this almost say that now, when the chief has spoken, no one can actually argue that. So if we educate the chiefs, I'm telling you, we'll be in the position of say that try to save life, especially our children, because those are our future.
Chief CHOC, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us and giving us this voice in our communities about what can be done. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing, and I hope that you're serving as an example to others that they can follow in what you're doing. So, Khosi, ke a leboha.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, so just before I introduce my next guest, I just want to remind some people, if you are wanting help and information, if you want to get some assistance, if you believe your child is dealing with cancer, please visit the CHOC website, and that's www.choc.org.za. If you want to get involved with CHOC and assist and help in any way, make a donation even, please visit that website again, the address www.choc.org.za. Please visit that website, because the early warning signs are there as well of childhood cancer, and that will be a great pointer for you. And spread the word to everybody, friends and family, so that they're aware of the website and they're aware of the early warning signs, just in case. Okay, now, we've heard a number of voices already so far, and this is the whole point of this conversation, is to get different perspectives. But I can't think of a harder journey than a parent being told that the child is dealing with cancer or this childhood blood disorder. But they too need support as they support their children. And to tell us her story about being a mom with a child with cancer, it's my great pleasure to welcome a brave mother who's going to tell us her story a little bit. Tembalami and Ndlovu, son, Andani, has been diagnosed with malignant peripheral nerve sheath tumor of the orbit and journeyed with childhood cancer and with CHOC for many years now. Tembalami is an advocate for childhood cancer and is giving back to newly diagnosed parents, volunteering for CHOC. Thank you so much indeed for joining us, and welcome to both of you. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you so much, Rita, for having us in this program, and we are very honored to be on this program.
Hello, Andani. I love your smile. Fantastic to have you both. Okay, let me start with you, Tembalami. When did you first find out that Andani had cancer?
It was in 2018, early in Jan, when I noticed his eyes were red with some white spots. Then I took him to the GP for a checkup, and then the GP referred us to the ophthalmologist. When we were there, the ophthalmologist, they gave us some treatment to use for the period of 3 months, some eye drops to use. But along that way, I saw some changes in his eyes and I wasn't happy. His eyeballs started to change, as well as the squint. His eyes looks like they were not aligned. And I sent him back to the ophthalmologist, who referred us to do MRI scan. We went for the MRI scan, and when we came back, we found out that he has tumor in one of his eye. And then he referred us as well to another ophthalmologist who specializes with tumor. We went to the ophthalmologist, and then he was put in for an operation. They couldn't delay it because it was during the time of the exams. They couldn't delay it because he would go blind. Then he did the op, it was successful. And then they had to do the biopsy because they thought the tumor, they suspected the tumor was cancerous. And then the biopsy came back positive to say it was cancerous. Then we were referred to the oncologist. And then the oncologist also did her test on, and then it came back positive as well. And then it's when he started his chemo treatment. He did the chemo, and then we were done early in because he started, I think, in August 2018, then we were done in 2019, Jan. Then around March, I think we did another MRI scan to check if he was clear, 3 scans, and then we found out everything was clear. It was fine. Unfortunately, last year, August, the remission, and then I took him back to the ophthalmologist who did the first operation. And then to find out, we did the MRI scan again to find out the tumor was back. And then we had to go through another op. During that time when they found out as he also lost his eyesight, then they had to remove the whole eye because he didn't see, and then it was next to the brain. So we decided that they must just remove it, and then we still continuing with chemo.
All right, so it's been quite a journey for you then. Tell us about the support that you get and why it's important to knock on doors like CHOC and get the support to help you through this tough journey.
The CHOC, they really made it easier for us. They were very helpful, supporting towards the family, and also with Andani. And then through CHOC also, we've noticed that they've built his self-esteem, and then he's very positive. He never gives up. And then through CHOC, we also identified his line of career.
And what's that?
He wants to be a sports journalist.
Let him tell us. And Danny, what do you want to be?
I want to become a sports journalist.
Oh my goodness, you want to come join me at the studio here?
Yes.
So what's your favorite sport then?
It's mostly soccer, and rugby.
And rugby.
Yeah.
So do you think the Springboks are going to beat the All Blacks?
This time maybe they can. This time they can.
All right. Tell me about the support that you've been getting with CHOC. How has that helped you?
It has helped me really a lot. Like through the programs, I finally discovered who am I and how can I improve myself. It's been a great journey with CHOC from the beginning. It wasn't really easy to accept it, but at the end of it all, I finally realized that this journey happened and it led me to something good, even though I had to go through the chemo treatment, which wasn't nice.
Yeah, you know what, Danny, you're a very brave young man, and thank you so much that despite all of this, that you can greet us with such a beautiful smile. And I certainly look forward to maybe one day being a colleague with you, working at the SABC. Tembalami, one final message perhaps, what's your message to other parents when they suspect that a child may have these early warning signs of childhood cancer?
My advice to parents, as soon as you notice that it's something unusual change in your child, seek medical help. If it happens that your child is diagnosed with cancer, they are diagnosed with cancer, tell them that how much you love them, and then you're going to support them all through this journey. And then they must never give up. Nothing has changed to them. They are still the same. And then explain to them the steps that will be taking through during the chemo treatment, and then what will be happening. And then one thing, you must make sure that they have not changed. They are still the same. They can still achieve everything they want to achieve in life.
And
it's not the end of the road. And also what I would want to add, with the handbook from CHOC, it's really helpful. With me, when I first find out that Andani was diagnosed, I read it from the beginning to the end. It really helped me. And then it also makes you to have an like to reach the stage of accepting that your child is diagnosed with cancer. And then also explains the drug that your child will be taking. When you read, you can also explain to your child, this time you'll be taking this drug. This is what you need to expect. It's really, really helpful.
And I suppose the important thing there, as you're saying, is that you're not alone. There is help, and there's people who've gone through this so many times, so that they hold your hand and take you through this journey.
Yes. And also the parents, what I will say, they can go for counseling or meet some people who've been through this journey. It's really, really helping to talk out.
All right.
Hey.
Thembelani and Ndani, to both of you, thank you so much for joining us. So good to meet you and to hear your story. And I wish you the best, Ndani. And we must connect soon, and I'll give you a tour of the SABC.
Okay.
All right.
Lovely.
All right. Okay. So that's a mom and child talking about their journey, Thembelani and Ndani. But I want to introduce you to another brave young man, a childhood cancer survivor. He went through it himself. And just to take us through his story, on the 30th of May 2010, Matthew was diagnosed with Burkitt's lymphoma. And 3 days later, he started treatment at the Red Cross Children's Memorial Hospital in Cape Town in South Africa. Matthew is an accomplished sportsman, represented Western Province squash for many years, and was awarded SA School Colours for squash and SA Interprovincial Tournament in 2017. In 2021, Matthew was elected captain of squash for Bishops and was awarded full colours. He's also played A-team water polo. So you got a big back then, Matthew.
Thank you. I've been quite active.
And he's awarded the Peter van der Bijl Award for All-Round Excellence, one of the top awards in Bishop's Prep, One Design Tech Award that same year. Furthermore, he was elected as Bishop's Deputy Head of House Ogilvy on the 10th of December 2019. Matthew was officially cleared of cancer and rang the symbolic bell to acknowledge that. Matthew is a strong ambassador for CHOC and childhood cancer. Matthew, thank you so much for joining us. And one of the reasons why it's important for us to tell your story, and I know it's embarrassing for you, but what it does is that it follows on to the message that we just heard from Thembelani, that it's not going to stop you doing amazing things, that you are more than capable and able, even if you're on this journey. And so that's why it was important for us to tell that story. But thank you so much for joining us. And I just wonder if you could tell us your story, because there is a belief that, you know, children who get cancer can't lead normal lives. What's been your experience?
So firstly, I just want to say thank you so much for hosting this incredible experience, and thank you for having me on here. It's an absolute pleasure. So to answer the question, for the first years after treatment, I was very young. It was 2010. I was about 7 years old. For the first few years, it was very overwhelming. It was an experience that I didn't have too much knowledge about, and it was very hard for me to accept what had happened to me. And in doing so, I buried all of those emotions down and all of those thoughts, and because of that, it caused copious amounts of grief and untapped stress. So after maturing and after making so many friends and reaching out to so many people, it gave me the opportunity to release the stress and release this pent-up grief, and for me, I used sport as my release, and that has it has taught me so many lessons, and it has just given me the opportunity and the grounds to do so many good things. I took what happened to me as a stepping stone, essentially, to do more good than I could ever imagine. And I feel privileged to have joined CHOC and to be one of their ambassadors, and to be able to share my story and share my experience with those who are interested in this incredible cause. And especially as I matured, I began to take more risks, and I began to live life a little bit more vicariously. So it did take a while. It was hard. It was very hard in the beginning, I must say, but just taking that first step was such a relief. So, yeah.
That is a great story, and I know it must be difficult, especially when you're young and you don't quite have the language to express yourself. But I think you are living proof of what is possible and what can happen if you get the right support and the right help. But I guess your story really started with the determination of your parents in early detection and getting you the right help straight away. Tell us about how early detection impacted your journey.
So straight off the bat, that was the tipping point of whether I would actually be sitting here today talking to you guys and sharing my story. The persistence that my parents showed throughout the entire diagnosis of my cancer was absolutely incredible, something I could have genuinely not asked more of them for. I was initially misdiagnosed once or twice. I think it was about 2 times before my parents, my mom actually, I was misdiagnosed twice, and then she said, no, this can't be happening. There's no ways that such a common thing is causing my son such pain. So because of the determination from her and my dad as well, it led to them detecting my cancer very early, stage 2B to be specific. So the doctors were able to get me on antibiotics, chemo, all of that within the first couple of days, as you said. And within a couple of months, I was cleared. Wow. And yeah.
Yeah, that is a powerful story, and I think one for our parents as well. That you know, keep pushing, get those diagnoses. Don't ignore the signs. Get help as early as you can. So, what would your advice be to encourage maybe a young person who's recently been diagnosed with cancer?
So for me, I was very lucky in my experience. I was, as I said, it was in grade 1, so I was very young. So what my parents did, they reached out to my school, and I think in doing that, in reaching out to your friends, to the families, and just finding a good support system is probably the most important thing. It's very hard. It's very, very hard as a youngster between just any ages. It's hard to reach out, and it's hard to accept what is happening to you. And that for me was a very big step, but I'm forever grateful that my parents helped me to reach out to the school, to friends, family, because their support and knowing that people are with you through thick and thin, through absolutely anything, and knowing that you can count on others. I know it's scary, but just having that safety net there for you it's undescribable, honestly. Yeah. And yeah, throughout my whole ordeal, I was lucky to have friends visit me in hospital through a tiny little window, since they weren't allowed in my ward. And it's moments like those which really stick to you. And I'm best mates with some of those guys to this day, like 11 years later. It's
yeah.
So yeah.
No, it's a powerful story that you're sharing with us, and I guess, look, it is scary, and there's no one doesn't have to run away from being scared, but also, I guess, to embrace the fact that you're not alone and you can get help and you can get support. And so that, yes, fear is a natural thing, but there is hope and you can get help from people that'll make the journey so much more different.
Couldn't agree more. Genuinely could not agree more.
All right, fantastic. You know what, I want you to stay with us a little bit, because I want to bring all of the people that we've heard from so far to perhaps give us final thoughts. So if we could welcome back Professor Gita Naidu, Chief CHOC, Matthew, and Tembelami, if we could all bring you back. And I just want to start maybe with you, Prof. Naidu. The big dream is that the nurses at primary healthcare clinics know the early warning signs of childhood cancer, and that they should pick up a possible case and are able to refer them timelessly to a pediatric oncology unit in South Africa. How would that make a difference, do you think, in the wards?
Yes, thank you, Peter. It's the early warning signs is not only for the nurses in the primary health care. We also have many doctors who miss the diagnosis of childhood cancer. So it's for pediatricians, it's for general practitioners, and it is for nurses. And I think the big difference that it will make, as I mentioned earlier, is that children will come in with an early stage diagnosis. When they come in with an early stage diagnosis, for a lot of the cancers, especially the solid tumors, treatment can be as an outpatient. You do not have to be admitted to the ward. We do not have to, in addition to your cancer and all the treatment you're going through, have to worry about your nutritional status. And when you have a high stage of cancer, stage 3 or stage 4, you have to have more intensive chemotherapy, and that has complications in itself. So one of the big complications, one of the oncology emergencies that we talk about is infections in children with cancer. And a lot of children, many of our hospitals, we only have 13 public sector hospitals in South Africa. So our referral areas are extremely wide. So a lot of us may give chemotherapy to a child, but we're afraid to send these children home. So they spend prolonged periods of time in the hospital, and then fortunately, of course, we have the CHOC houses. But all of this is mainly because children are presenting with advanced disease requiring so much more therapy. And I think that's one of the positive benefits of early detection, that and also for our nursing staff in our hospital to be facing children who have advanced disease, are in a lot of pain, are malnourished, have extensive treatment, surgery, radiation. It can be quite disillusioning for them. It can be very painful. It is a huge emotional burden to bear. And for early detection will have many, many, many benefits for the patient, for their families, for the healthcare system in South Africa, for all of those who work with children with cancer. So for me, I cannot emphasize enough, and I speak on behalf of the pediatric oncology community in South Africa. All of us would agree that that is perhaps one of the most important aspects that we want. We want early detection of cancer.
Prof. Gita, thank you so much indeed for those final thoughts. And let's get a final word from you, Chief CHOC. How do we bridge this gap between traditional and so-called Western medicine when it comes to childhood cancer?
Yeah, thanks again, Peter. Peter, you know, after listening to what Dr. Kele just said, you know, it actually came into my mind that we do need to bridge this gap between the Western and the traditional, you know, medicine as such. You see, but the problem is this, Peter, I need to state it. You see, there are no policies in place, and there is no actually, you know, regulations. First of all, you know, traditional health practitioners, you know, they do have an act, which is, you know, traditional health practitioners, which was actually signed by the president, then president, in 2008. The purpose of that, it was to actually now to establish, the Council for Traditional Practitioners, so as to we should be able to participate fully and regulate it, and we be able to know how to sort of like work with the Western. But it is unfortunately because it's not yet, been actually been implemented. So you see, I'm becoming more and more worried because of now, in 1978 in the Alma Ata Declaration, you see, in Geneva, you see, member states have been given a mandate that now they should, when they go back to their state, they should sort of like include traditional medicine into their national health system. But still today, our country hasn't done that. So if things were in place, you see, it was going to be easy for us to close that gap. First of all, we will have, information sharing, on the treatment regimes across both schools, the Western and the traditional. And then the awareness, there should be an awareness drive. There was going to be an awareness drive, but we also say there should be an awareness drive, to Western healthcare givers on the African traditional medicine practices and the rights. You see, so that will be easier, and then the gap will be, narrowed. And then there must be also a continual workshop for the African traditional medicine practitioners on all types of cancer. You see, there are some other ailments, but we're talking about cancer now. You see, it should be that on all types of cancer signs and symptoms. But lastly, which is more critical, there should be, a critical care of support network of, interaction for or in between, the two school of practices. In that case, the gap could be narrowed, and then we'll be able to work together, because the target is one, Peter. The target is a patient. Yeah. So if we push ourselves side to side and not actually coming together, I mean, who suffers? It's our patient, because traditional healers will stay back and they won't be able to refer. Also, there is no referral system. The referral system is one way. You see, traditional healers, they do refer to clinics and to hospitals, but the hospital, they'll never refer because there is no actually policies in place. If there were policies, then we would be able to know and say, okay, fine. It means that now after I've referred my patient to the clinic, and the clinic will refer back to me as well. So because of that, that is why we still have this gap. But now who suffers? It's our people. So I think we need to, the government itself, they need to speed up these regulations, and they need to speed it up to establish the council. So we should be able to work together. Hence, we are saying that now we thank CHOC very much for what it actually is doing, because with CHOC, we are able to refer, and then CHOC can come back to us and say, this is your patient actually now, this is what we found. But our government doesn't do that. So it's very painful.
Oh, thank you so much for those observations and suggestions. And I think, as you say, ultimately, it's the care of the patient that we all should really be focused and concerned about. And if we can find ways to join hands and work together with that objective in mind, then we're halfway to the outcomes that we want. Thank you so much, Chief Chauke. Matthew, this question perhaps is already answered just in the way that you live your life. I mean, they say that a lot of people feel that there's no life for a survivor of cancer, but I think you are the embodiment of what is possible post-survival.
Thank you. And yeah, I do feel like there is this common stigma about life after remission for survivor. But I just want, as after one has been cured and they are in remission, some do just want to forget about that whole experience, because as I said previously in my answer, it's incredibly traumatic and it can cause so much pain for some people. And the fact that they live through it, it just bubbles up inside of them, and just letting those feelings build up, it's already, it's something that's hard to live with. But yeah, so I just want, yes, I do believe that there is this myth, but for those of you that are in remission and that are struggling to get back to what some would say as normal life, I just want to give my side of it. Own your story. Own it. There's no running from it. There's no hiding. It's happened to you. You've come through this and you've got the better of it. And it will be hard, yes, but it's never going to go away. I can promise you from my own experience and the way that I've tried to give back to the people who have helped me tremendously throughout all of my years and joining CHOC and helping people, it has opened up so many doors for me, just to give back to everyone. So it's,
all right.
yeah, it is hard to accept it, to accept what happened, but owning that story, because it is a part of you. And yeah,
you know what, you are living proof of what is possible. A mental shift perhaps required, but certainly, you know what, the doctors like Professor Gita will do amazing work, and they will help along that journey. Parents will support, friends will help and support, but at the end of the day, you as the person going through it possibly then has to, as you say, own the story and live your life as fully as you can. Thank you so much indeed for your powerful testimony there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's Matthew there. And a final word from Thembelani and Ndani in terms of, you know, your journey has seen your lives change, and this is what will happen to many parents and children who are facing childhood cancer. What do you see as the best way forward, Thembelani?
Okay, we see a way forward by moving forward and never looking back. And then with his positive attitude, he makes me more stronger the way he is so strong. And we're always telling ourselves that cancer can take his physical ability, but it won't take away his spiritual ability.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much indeed to all of you for joining us. And Ndani, I look forward to meeting you. It'll be great to meet you. But to all of you, thank you so much indeed. Chief Chauke, Professor Naidu, Matthew, and Thembelani and Ndani, thank you so much for being part of this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right. So we're very privileged today to also have somebody from as far afield as the World Health Organization. I mean, this is the global body that's doing great work in terms of dealing with our health issues. Yes, COVID-19 perhaps has taken the front seat, but they've been working for hundreds of years and years, decades, dealing with some of our issues, and childhood cancer certainly one of them. And to share his thoughts with us, we're now joined by Dr. Ilbawi, who joined the World Health Organization in 2015 and now serves as the focal point for the cancer program at WHO headquarters in Geneva in Switzerland in his current position. Dr. Ilbawi is responsible for implementation of the 2017 World Health Assembly resolution on cancer prevention and control. He's led the launch of the WHO Global Initiative for Childhood Cancer in 2018, now being implemented in over 30 countries. Dr. Ilbawi, thank you so much indeed for joining us and giving us your time. I know that you're sitting on top of a global story, but to give us this much of your time is we greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Peter.
So what would you say is the WHO vision for childhood cancer globally to ensure that no child is left behind?
Yeah, thank you again. Just to begin with words of appreciation What CHOC is doing here, what all of you are doing, is in fact the pulse of the global initiative and the pulse of what we do at the World Health Organization. And as we think about that, perhaps also to reflect and express additional appreciation to Dani, to Matthew, to Thembalani for sharing such personal stories. This really makes a reference, it makes our journey more real to hear what's happening and to be inspired by such courageous, such strong, and such commanding people. So really thank you to them. As many of you know, in 2018, we opened a new chapter in childhood cancer. The World Health Organization, alongside all our partners around the world, launched the Global Initiative for Childhood Cancer. The ambition is to ensure that at least 60% of children with cancer around the world survive. This is a doubling in the number of children. And if we put this into specific lives, we're talking about 1 million children who could be saved if we reach this target in the next decade. 1 million children's lives. So this is an ambition, but we are making this ambition a reality, and we're doing so as a community. If we ask, what can we do? Well, let's start with the guiding principles. Guiding principle is that every child, regardless of where that child lives, regardless of the amount of family that the family has, regardless of the age or gender of that child, every child should have access to care everywhere. And this is what we're working to achieve. Now, how have we done it? What is success in a practical way? Well, to begin, success is governments that are coming on board. As you noted kindly, Peter, we now have, in fact, more than 40 governments that have signed on to this initiative, saying that they are ready, willing, and able to commit to this target and will make the investments that are necessary. It takes the partners across the board, multilateral organizations, businesses, and other key stakeholders in the community to say, we're going to advance this agenda with you. No government is going to do it alone. The private sector, traditional healers, providers themselves, everyone's going to stand arm in arm to advance this agenda together. And the providers, let us also pause to appreciate the many healthcare providers that have overcome the challenges of the current pandemic and have shown up in the clinics every day to provide that care, to hold hands, to counsel patients. It requires that we enable those providers, we strengthen their work, and we give them the resources that they need to succeed. And then finally, we cannot forget the advocates, the people who have been pushing childhood cancer now for decades. In fact, as you said, Peter, hundreds of years to advance the health agenda. Cancer has existed as long as we've known, but now we're opening up a new chapter in childhood cancer globally. So the WHO Global Initiative for Childhood Cancer is working with governments to make this the new reality. Governments, partners, and communities coming together with a shared understanding that no child should have their life taken from cancer. As you said, this pandemic has been quite difficult for all of us. It has shaken our core understanding of what is health and where does the health fit within the broader priority of communities. And many of us are concerned that childhood cancer is being forgotten. It isn't. We do need to keep it on the political agenda. We need to keep it on the health agenda because there is tomorrow. And when that tomorrow comes, childhood cancer should not be an afterthought. We have a new position with childhood cancer as a priority in the health agenda, and it should stay that way. But what it needs and what all of our communities need in this current pandemic is solidarity. What we need is to come together as a community because a child with cancer should not be alone, as we've heard so well said today. Currently, there are thousands of children on the African continent that don't know that they have cancer and will never make it to a hospital for the care that they need, thousands. So it is time for that solidarity. It is time to come together and ensure we offer every child the best possible care because it is doable. We're not asking the world to create the impossible. We're asking the world to enable the success that we've seen in many places in countries like South Africa that have made significant progress. Let's do more to accelerate that progress and to make that reality true for children with cancer globally, not just in our limited communities.
And as somebody with a global view of the challenges in terms of dealing with childhood cancer, just how important, and you've seen it all over the world, I'm sure, is early detection, noticing those signs and signals, and getting our children to treatment early.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. And this is a message we've heard so well today from the professor, from the community members, from Chief. What we're talking about is everyone's responsibility. There is a concern that with childhood cancer, there are signs and symptoms that may not be clear, a little easy bruising or bleeding, some things that people can pass over and say, well, This isn't cancer, or may not even think of cancer after 2 or 3 clinic visits, as we heard from Matthew. But early diagnosis is an investment that all of us must make, from health literacy that impacts the general public, to enabling the community health workers and nurses, to supporting medical curriculum, as we heard someone wrote so wisely in the chat box, so that everyone makes that investment in early detection. Because it's not a one-person job. It's not just the individual or the family. It's about the community, the first-line healthcare providers, the clinics, the hospitals throughout a country. That's what's needed for early diagnosis. The journey's not easy and it's not short, but it is achievable. And everyone, if we make the right investments, has a role to play. So increasing awareness is not just about saying what are the early signs and symptoms, but as you also rightly pointed out, Peter, it's about creating a message of hope. And as we've heard from our survivors, from Donnie and from Matthew, it is important that we instill that hope and do so as a community. That yes, you may be scared, you will likely be scared with the word cancer. That's normal. But as we heard from Matthew, it should not own you. It should not dictate your life. You can own the journey, and that is an important part of the long-term healing process. But cancer is not the definition of a human being. Cancer is something that people live with and can overcome. And that's what we talk about. So awareness is not just about saying, here are the things to look out for, but also creating the narrative that when it does happen, we're here as a community together. And that's part of what the cancer journey looks like. And it doesn't stop when treatment ends. It means we will support you as you go back to your communities, as you become a broadcaster, as we so wisely heard from Andani. Let's make these things happen. And not only that, but also support families that have to go through that journey with their loved ones. This is a community that it requires. This is why we take time, all of us take time on a day like today. We know we're all busy, but childhood cancer is personal, and at the same time, it's a community. So this is why we come together as a community for the good of that child and really for the good of all of us to keep that pulse intact.
Dr. Elbawi, thank you so much indeed for giving us your time, lending your voice to this very important conversation. Thank you so, so much indeed.
Thank you, Peter.
All right, that's Dr. Andre Elbawi speaking to us all the way from Geneva in Switzerland at the WHO on this very, very important conversation that we're having. Early childhood cancer, early detection in childhood cancer, critical pillar in fighting and battling this disease, which can be cured. Catch it early, effective treatment, and you know, the prognosis are usually very, very good. All right, so we're going to start wrapping things up. Again, you know, thank you so much indeed to everybody who's joined in the conversation throughout. And for me, it's been great being part of this and being a moderator. I've had the privilege to speak to some very important people with some great messages. But it's my great pleasure now to welcome the new CEO of CHOC to give us some concluding remarks. Hedley Lewis has been appointed as the new CEO of CHOC Childhood Cancer Foundation. He has a heart for children with cancer or lifelong threatening blood disorder, and is passionate that every child diagnosed with cancer should be referred timeously and have access to a specialized treatment center, essential medicine, technology, comprehensive support, and palliative care. So to help wrap us this conversation today, please welcome everybody, Hedley Lewis, CEO of CHOC.
Hi, Peter, thanks so much. CHOC's awareness training and educational programs, just over 10 years. Together, we've been able to train 30,000 individuals, from healthcare workers to traditional healers, communities, around the early warning signs. For us at CHOC, the one area that we are passionate about, besides our entire journey with the patients, with the hospitals, with our government, is being able to promote awareness and education. For us, we believe that everyone has the voice. We believe that everyone should join in the choir of the voices. And in order to do that, to educate, assisting, and to come together as a community. Most people think that the community is within a region, within a province, or within a country. But I think that today we've seen speakers across the globe that have actually said that the community is really a global community. For us, we're passionate that there have been voices across the country and as far as Geneva that are really echoing and creating a harmony of one specific area: early detection and early warnings. For us at CHOC, we encourage, we engage, and we pay respect to those that have fought this disease, continue to fight this disease. But just as importantly, we believe that globally and within our country, it's everyone's responsibility to help with either referrals or with educating around these early warning signs. CHOC is passionate that we will continue to collaborate, we will continue to augment, and we will continue to support. And for that, this choir of voices, this harmony of collaboration, we call on for continuous unity in order to support and to augment and to help as many individuals that continue to go through the cancer journey. We hope that with more people knowing the early warning signs and detecting the disease earlier, it will obviously decrease mortality and hopefully the morbidity of this disease being cancer. I'd like to just take the opportunity with everyone's permission just for 2 minutes, because a lot of work and a lot of people have come together on what is really a very important topic and a very important opportunity to voice opinions. To you, Peter, you're a shining light to both us, to our community, and especially to CHOC. You always step up, and with no cost at all, you're always there to mediate, to moderate, or to complement and to bring these voices. And for us, we pay tribute and we thank you. And from all of us, we continue to just say thank you for your always being there by our sides. To Marcelo from Clover, sir, I think that Clover is a shining example of how corporates really can wear their corporate values on their sleeves by saying that just as much as South Africa needs milk, so too does it need support. And I think these values are actually eminent in corporates and it's individuals like yourself that lead companies like Clover in order to support both the NGO world, to support our government, and most importantly, to support the entire environment that CHOC plays. Prof. Gita Naidu, I think that we're constantly humbled by individuals of your stature, of your ilk, and your examples of what South Africa has in terms of skills, love, and passion to fight this disease and to complement and to work together with our government and to constantly make sure that childhood cancer is at the forefront, but most importantly, that you're there to walk side by side. We're really appreciative that you partner with CHOC, your guidance, your organization, and all the pediatric oncologists are there with their passion and their love. Chief Chowki, I think that you're an example of an individual and of a community that really wants to support. I think patient-centric views and how to support patients is really synonymous with how you've spoken, with how you act, and we look forward as an organization to continue supporting. I think that when we pay tribute to heroes, we always think of those that are on the front lines, to our governments. But I think that we need to pay tribute to the moms, to the mothers that are constantly fighting this battle, silently sometimes, painfully sometimes. But they do it for one reason: unconditional love, and love for their families and love for their children. So Tembelani and Ndoro, we pay tribute to sometimes individuals such as yourself that don't get the thanks. But I think the thanks is in your child. Your thanks is what they're going to reintroduce into our country. And your thanks is the journey that they will have in order to change our society. Matthew, I think that we're all humbled by your constantly supporting, wording, advocating. And what is amazing is that you're a shining example of that nothing is going to get you down and that there's true opportunities for cancer survivors. I think that when I look at an individual such as yourself, I think that you should be proud, that you should be proud in the sense not just how you spoke today, but your entire journey, how you culminate, how you pay tribute, and how you thank both your parents and all the oncology team. But just as importantly, I think you're a shining example to your school and to your country and to survivors as a whole. So we thank you very much for that. If I have a look, there are lots of people that are behind the scenes that have been working tirelessly to make sure and bring this webinar together. So a special thanks to Wayne Brown at his awesome company, to the brand race. You guys really have stepped up to bring together a professional, a well-run, and a webinar that really stretches globally, and hopefully these messages are going to be spread globally. To the special CHOC team that are behind the scenes, that have given a lot of thought to messaging, to individuals, and to making sure that voices across the country of different ilks, of different areas, whether it's rural, urban, medical, government, world leaders, have really come together to echo one voice. I think that a very special message needs to go out to Dr. Andre Ilbawi for showcasing the importance that it's not just individuals that have to echo these voices. It's not just communities, it's not just the medical profession, it's not even just our country, but globally, global leaders need to constantly step up and support. To you, sir, all the way from Geneva, we appreciate the support both to CHOC, to the cancer alliances, to our government, and we hope that you can take back to the entire World Health Organization our thanks and our appreciation on behalf of all of us, but just as importantly on behalf of the CHOC board, to our CHOC executives. But more importantly, I think the thanks to you and to everyone is the augmentation and the awareness that's going to be brought. And I think the biggest thanks needs to come from those that don't have a voice, to those that we may not know, we may not see. It is those people that I'm privileged as the CEO to really say to all of you, thank you. And my final thank you is to all of those that are watching. A huge compliment to those that have really stepped up and said, I'm going to take some time out of the day, either to learn, to support, augment, or to grow. So to all of you in South Africa, globally, or those that are watching via various mediums, each and every one of you finally has one more obligation. And you should make a silent promise to yourself that if any stage you should know of a child that has any of these signs, two things should occur in your mind. Firstly, choc.org.za is where these early warning signs are. And the second thing is that you can be just as big of a hero in these children's lives as the pediatric oncologists and our government and all the stakeholders are, by just referring early and conveying the message. So to all of you, we wish you a special thanks.
Thank you. That's it. Thank you so much, Hedley, and thanks everybody. Go out and be amazing. If you are a young person and you've diagnosed, you're not alone. Yes, it's scary and you're allowed to be scared, but you know what? There's so much help out there. Reach out, they'll take you through that journey. To everybody, Team CHOC and everyone who's involved in making life a little bit better, thank you so much. And it's been a pleasure for me to be part of this as well. So thank you all very much indeed, and Godspeed and be well. Yeah.